Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. For today I've prepared a little list on my top 3 beginner lizards. Of course there's other species that beginners can keep even without any other experience, but these are just my top 3. Also don't forget to leave a like on this video and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video, and without any further ado, let's get into my top 3. Alright you guys, I'm also really sorry already because I know you can hear my crickets in this video the entire time. I really can't help it. I really can't. Firstly, I have the Crested Gecko on my list. This is a Crested Gecko, and this is my Crested Gecko. His name is Delta. Crested Gecko originally come from New Caledonia. Now, in my opinion, Cresties are really good for beginners because they get quite tame and do not really have high requirements for their enclosures and their keeping in general, and they're still really cool geckos. So an adult Crestie will reach about 8 inches from nose to tip of the tail. There is different colors in Cresties. Delta, for example, is a Dalmatian. There is other color variations in Cresties that you can get. They have a lifespan of about 15 to 20 years. Now for an adult Crestie, you should offer a tank size of at least 1 foot by 1 foot by 2 feet, standing vertically, so because they like to climb up high. But in my opinion, you can do a lot nicer setups if the tanks are bigger. I recommend a tank with a screen top, as Crested Gecko need a high humidity, and it will be really hard to not have it too humid if you have a full glass tank. Now if you have a screen top, it will be a lot easier to keep spraying them daily without having too much humidity in the tank. I also learned that real plants are really good for their environment that they need. They help with keeping the humidity high and just in general look really good. But if you do not want that, fake plants will just do as well. For a Crestie enclosure, you do want to make sure to offer quite a many plants because the Cresties do really like hiding in their fake plants. For bedding, you have a lot of different options. It is not really that important as the Crestie doesn't go on the ground really often. Yet I like to use coconut fiber. You can use moss, whatever you really like. Just don't use sand or something, as that's not their natural environment. Personally, I like to keep really young Cresties where I really need to pay a lot of attention if they're eating and if they're digesting and everything on kitchen paper, because you really can see everything basically. It's really much easier to monitor them that way. Can keep Cresties at about room temperature, as they only need an ambient temperature of about 75 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Make sure in summer you keep your Crestie in a room that is cooler than 87 degrees Fahrenheit, as temperatures above that can be harmful to your gecko. You want to keep the humidity quite high, so spray them every day, also because they do drink from the water drops and do offer a water vault as well. Their diet consists mainly of fruit, so there's a lot of supplements that you can get, and your gecko will be perfectly fine only eating that. For example, Repashy or Pangea, Crested Gecko diet, things like that. I'm personally a big fan of using baby food, 100% fruit baby food. You have to really make sure that there's nothing else in there, just 100% actual fruit. Or you can just get bananas and some other fruit, mash it all up and just offer them that. Cresties do also eat insects, so you can choose if you want to offer that as a primary diet or fruit. So insects can also just be treats if that's what you prefer. Cresties can't throw their tail if they get scared or stressed, and they will not regrow it actually. They'll just then go their life without a tail. For me, it never happened with any of my Cresties, and I hope it won't. But they'll be completely fine even if they throw their tails. Be sure if you're keeping several Cresties that is one male and several females, or only several females. Never keep 2 males in one enclosure, as that will just cause fights. Next up on my list, I have Leopard Geckos, which actually were my first reptile. I think they are really awesome for a first time reptile keeper or lizard keeper. as they do also get very tame very easily. They are quite a bit bigger than Cresties do get. Leopard geckos reach about a size of 7 to 10 inches, whereas the females are smaller than the males. And there's also leopard geckos that are called giants that get above 10 inches. So this is my Leopard Gecko King. I do have a full care guide on my channel on leopard geckos. I'm not going to be able to make all of these full care guides, as this video would be 40 minutes long if I did. So I'm basically just putting together small little fractions that I find most important. And for a full care guide on these guys, I'll put a link right here and right here or here. I think it's here. I'm actually not sure. And I'll link it down below too. A full care guide on Cresties is hopefully also coming up in the next weeks. On the last lizard that I will be presenting, I won't make a care guide as I do not own it. The average lifespan of a leopard gecko is about 10 years, but if you're keeping them well, they can very easily reach up to 20 years as well. I have a group of 4 leopard geckos personally, and I keep them in a 4 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet enclosure, which is enough for them. I think for one leopard gecko you really should have a tank that is at least 2.5 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet, just so your gecko can have some space to move around as well. I'm pretty sure you could make it somehow with a 2 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet as well, but it's just not perfect. It's not ideal. For the enclosure, you want to make sure that you add a lot of hiding spots for them. Basically, you really want to offer a lot of stones, stone plates where they can hide in between, hides in general like caves, branches also. I just like to go really crazy. I don't really have a picture of my old enclosure and they don't have their new one yet. And for bedding, never use sand as they can ingest the sand but not digest the sand. And I personally like using a sand clay mixture. It's what works best in my opinion, as they cannot ingest it. It's like sticky, but they can still like dig in it if they want to and make caves. The hot side of the tank should be about 90 degrees Fahrenheit and the cooler side about 75. You can reach that easily by putting in a heat spot in the enclosure, and then they can just choose where they would rather be. I spray my leopard geckos about every 2 to 3 days, as they also like to drink from the water drops, but obviously I do offer them a water bowl at all times. Leopard geckos only eat insects. They do not eat any fruit, veggies, or anything really. So you really have to be sure that you aren't scared of having insects at your house the entire time. And I know you guys can hear the crickets in the background this whole video probably. There is other feeders that you can get for your leopard geckos that do not make noise, but if you do get crickets, they will definitely be making noise all the time. I feed my leopard geckos about 3 times a week with different insects that I get for them. I like to get crickets, hoppers, sometimes mealworms, just have a variety of foods, switch it up. So also leopard geckos can throw their tails, but if they do decide to throw it, it'll basically just grow back within a couple weeks. It'll just have a little bump in the spot that they threw it in, like probably around like they would throw it in the very top. So it'd have a bump there. None of my leopard geckos have ever thrown their tails, so I'm pretty proud of that. For leopard geckos, it's basically the same as for Cresties, that you do not want to keep several males and definitely several females on one male, and it's always best to keep just one single gecko. And for my last pet lizard on this list, it's the bearded dragon. I do not own a bearded dragon. I'm not a fan of bearded dragons. Don't ask me why, I just don't like the way they look. I don't like them. I'll probably never have one. But I know they're widely known as a really good beginner lizard, so I thought I'd incorporate them in my list. Okay, so as I do not own a bearded dragon, I do not have as much info on them, as I don't have any experience in keeping them. It's just gonna be a quick facts about bearded dragons. Also, I just noticed how naked I look. I'm wearing something, I swear. So bearded dragons are definitely the biggest lizards on this list as they reach 16 to 20 inches long, and I believe they also can get bigger than that, so yeah. Their lifespan is also 10 years or more. As for most reptiles, really, they all get pretty old. Of course, they only can reach ages that high if you do your best in keeping them and offer them everything they need. So from what I know, for a bearded dragon, an adult bearded dragon, a 75-gallon tank should be enough. It sounds a bit little to me though, so I'd recommend getting more than that just for the comfort of the animal. You really just want to go big because it's always the bigger the better, the nicer you can make the tank and the more comfortable your animal will be too. For bearded dragons, UV light is a must. Without UV light, they will get really sick. Their bones will basically turn to rubber, sort of, and then they can't move. It's disgusting. I've seen some cases of bearded dragons being kept without UV light, and it is really awful. Like, I feel so bad for these animals. Just please spend the extra money on a UV light. And if you do not want that, you can still get the crested geckos and the leopard geckos, as they do not need UV light, so take that into consideration as well. So these guys really need it hot in their enclosure. You should have a basking spot that reaches about 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and the cooler side of the tank should be about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. So really make sure you get a really strong heat lamp for these guys, and also definitely a UVB light. That is the most crucial part about all of this. For water and substrate, they are basically the same as leopard geckos, just spraying every couple of days to give them drops to drink from, obviously a water bowl, and it works best to use a sand clay mixture. These guys need both veggies and insects, so also the crickets, as with the leopard geckos, hoppers, grasshoppers, and all that kind of stuff. But also make sure you do offer them vegetables, as this is also crucial to their diet. As I do not know so much about bearded dragons, I will put a link down below on the foods that they can eat, as I never had one, so I'm not 100%, and I don't want to say something wrong to you guys, so better check the list I linked down below on foods that they can eat and that they can't eat. So for bearded dragons, it is best to keep one single bearded dragon alone, as I've heard and seen a lot of pretty bad cases when they were kept together and started fighting. Obviously there's pairs that you can keep quite easily together as long as the enclosure is large enough and they get along, so you always want to be sure about that. And as soon as they start not getting along anymore, you have to be able to separate them, so have a spare tank or whatever ready. But that's the same for leopard gecko and crested geckos too, if you keep several of them. You always want to be able to separate them if they do not get along anymore. So, and that is basically it for this video. Like I said, these aren't care guides, so do not go only on the information that I gave you. If you're thinking of getting one of these animals, definitely do much more research. But I think these guys are super amazing as beginner lizards. For bearded dragons, they also get super tame and quite big, so it is something you can really like touch, I guess. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I hope I see you guys here next time.